Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Wamboi and this is Millennium Immigration Consultancy. I first want to give a big thank you to all of you who have been watching and interacting with our content and have also been calling and making inquiries on the kind of services that we offer. Millennia is an immigration consultancy firm. We give consultancy and advocacy on matters immigration and visa processes, and we've also expanded to having more and more services like legal services that are usually done by our attorneys that work together with us. So for those who have subscribed, thank you very much. For those who keep calling and asking questions, we really appreciate you interacting with us and wanting to know more about our services. We have recently moved our office from Gigiri to Lavington, James Gishuru Road, and I will be updating that on the website. Now, if you can tell from today's video, it's not going to be a long video. I just want to clarify a few things that are obviously a bit confusing for applicants when you're making your visa application. And this is mainly the difference between a spouse, a de facto partner, and a common law partner. If you've tried to make a visa application, say to the UK or Australia or US or Canada or a Schengen visa, you may have come across this kind of terms, and sometimes you can be confused and be like, is someone my de facto partner or common law partner or spouse, and what is the difference? So in today's video I will try my very best, after doing my own research, to answer and to kind of give an explanation of the differences in very simple terms, so that as you're making your next visa application, or as you're about to make a visa application and maybe someone is a sponsor, someone is sponsoring you for your trip, that is, maybe they're paying for the part of the trip or the entirety of the trip, and they ask you your relationship with this person, you will be able to know whether to classify them as a spouse or a common law partner or a de facto partner. Because if obviously if you make a mistake, or if you call someone a spouse and maybe they're not a spouse, they're a common law partner, then that could give a risk for your visa getting accepted or denied. So now let's start with a spouse, which is the most common and the most simple and what could actually apply to most people. So as a person is your spouse, or you can only classify someone as your spouse if you are legally married. Legally, so you're married by the law, and whichever country you come from or whichever state you're coming from, you are recognized by the laws of that country to be a married couple. And obviously for spouses there has to be a few things that classify something as a marriage. There is a civil wedding, for example, you go to the attorney general's or you go to the civil registrar's office. Or it could be a cultural wedding. For those of us from Africa, this is a very common practice. For example, in my country, you can either get married through a civil marriage, you go to the DC or to the Attorney General's office and then you get married there. That's a civil wedding. You can do a cultural wedding in accordance to your culture or that of your spouse culture. So this is not a civil wedding, it's not a church wedding, it's a cultural or a traditional wedding, something like a rorashio if you're a Kikuyu, and those kind of traditional weddings. That's a spouse. Or it can also be a church wedding or a Muslim wedding or a Hindu wedding, anything to do with your religion. It can also be I already said that it can be a cultural wedding, a religious wedding, or a civil wedding. So those are the three main categories of the kind of weddings that we have mostly. And this is a very general, I know there are more subcategories and other religions and all that kind of stuff, but these are the main ones that apply to the majority of the people. So one, as we said, for legally spouse, there is a wedding, there is a marriage license or a marriage certificate, and there is a ceremony. So if you are in a situation where there are all these things are happening, there was a ceremony at some point, there's a certificate or a license that is issued by the government or the state, then that person qualifies to be your spouse. And obviously, married people have the right to divide property if they separate, and they also have the right to ask for support payments in case of a separation. So the support payment could be in form of spouse support or child support. So if what I'm saying correlates with your situation, then that person is your spouse. There has been a legal arrangement, there was a wedding, there was a ceremony, there were some documents that were signed. In case you separate, you would be entitled to some property, or you could divide that property, or they could be entitled to supporting you. Then that person can be qualified as a spouse. So when you're making your visa application, you term that person as your spouse. Now, the other two is a de facto partner slash a common law partner. Now, in my experience, and obviously you can always do more and more research, I have come to see that the terms de facto partner and common law partner are used interchangeably depending on the country that I'm applying the visas. For instance, when I apply for UK visas or Australian visas or a Schengen visa, I see them using the term de facto partner. But when I'm applying for a US visa or a Canadian visa, I see them using the word common law partner. So I think they do mean the same thing. The only difference is which country are you applying to. So what do they call it in that country, you see. So basically, a de facto partner or a common law partner, if I may put it that way, these are people, or this is someone you live together as a couple, but you're not married in a civil union. So you're living together, you do look like a couple from the outside, but it's not formal, or it's not a legal marriage. There is no ceremony that has been done, there has been no wedding yet, or it's not gonna happen maybe, but it looks like a marriage. So and one thing I forgot to say, that in a civil marriage or a cultural marriage, most times it's between heterosexual couples, but in de facto partners, this can be between people of any sex. So they can be same sex, or they can be a heterosexual couple. And that's very important to note, that if it's a same-sex relationship that is not yet a wedding, but you guys are living together, when you're applying for a visa, for example a spousal visa, then you can always choose that partner as a de facto partner. It can happen if one partner is already married to another person, or in another de facto relationship, but if you're living together with that person, then that person qualifies to be your de facto partner. So it doesn't matter even if they are married to someone else, or they are in another de facto relationship, they can always be you can always call them your de facto partner, as long as you're living together. And this is only when you're applying for your visa applications. I don't know about other aspects of life or other aspects of law. This is only about visa applications. Now, de facto relationships don't require any legal steps to begin or to end, because you just start living together. You just like moving together. Or in Kenya is what we call a come we stay kind of arrangement. So you go and live with this person, you live as a couple, you can even have children with them, you share bills, you live in the same household, but you have not yet officiated your union. Now, as I said, now this common law partner, it's like a type of a de facto partnership with a when you live together in a minimum of 1 year. So you cannot be someone's de facto partner or common law partner if you've only been living together for like 6 months or 8 months. It has to be longer than 1 year, and there has to be evidence of cohabitation and conjugal relationship. Okay, and cohabitation means living together. So if one person is in Australia and the other person is in Kenya, it cannot be a de facto relationship, because you're not cohabiting. You're not living together, and most likely if it's a long distance relationship, there isn't conjugal rights or but maybe because of, I don't know, it's a very slippery road when you start thinking about it, because there's also performing conjugal privileges over the phone nowadays. But basically, you should really be living together for it to be called a de facto relationship or a common law partner relationship. There also has to be evidence that you are combining your affairs and you're setting up one household. And combining your affairs is mainly paying bills together, you're sharing the bills together, you're living in one house, so you have accumulated all your resources and energies into one household. You cannot be living in one house and another person is living in another house and then call yourself common law partners or de facto partners. So as I said, and it cannot also be intermittent cohabitation. It has to be cumulative, not cumulative, but you cannot be in an intermittent cohabitation and then call that person your de facto partner. Even if they add up eventually, there has to be 1 year living together without any breaks. Sorry, I keep checking because I had to write all this down. Then after the 1 year, you can live apart but still continue to be common law partners. So once you've established the roots of that relationship by living together for 1 year, you can always live apart, but you can still call yourself a de facto partner. For example, you can be living with someone in your country for like 2 or 3 years or 1 year, and then this person leaves for another country, maybe for school or for work, but you are still together. You still qualify to call that person your de facto partner because you lived together at some point for 1 year, and there's evidence that as soon as whatever they're doing in another country is over, you intend to live together again, or maybe you'll be joining them. Maybe you're applying for a spousal visa or a fiancé visa. So there should obviously be evidence that the relationship is still ongoing through things like chats, pictures, vacations together, bills sharing, co-parenting or just parenting the children together. And these are the things that make it look like a real relationship. So now when we narrow it down to the main agenda, you can be sponsor to each other during visa applications if someone is your de facto partner or a common law partner. Remember, sometimes you may loosely call it a boyfriend, but boyfriend in what sense? Are you guys living together? Have you lived together? Then you can be able to establish, can this person sponsor you during your visa application? The other thing you should know is that if one party in a common law partner relationship is still married, they have to be living separated from their legal spouse. Remember I said that your common law partner can be somebody else's spouse. So they can be in the process of their divorce or their separation, but there has to be evidence that this person is not living with their legal spouse and they are actually in the process of separation from that person. So you may need the following documents to show as evidence: a separation agreement, if they are going through a separation with their other partner, a signed formal declaration that the marriage has ended and that the person has entered into a common law relationship. So there should be evidence that their previous marriage is ending or has ended, and there is documentation to prove all that, or something like a court order in respect to custody of children in the event of a marriage breakdown, or documents that are removing the spouse from things like insurance policies and wills and joint businesses. So basically, what you need to understand is that when you're making a visa application and you're sponsoring someone, the onus is on the sponsor to provide evidence that their previous relationship with their previous partner has ended. It's not up to the person being sponsored, it's up to the sponsor to show that they are free. Remember that even if you're applying for a spousal visa and you're applying for a spousal visa to go get married to a person from another country, you as the person getting married, you have to show that you've never been married, so there has to be a certificate of no impediment. And this other person has to show that they have either never been married or have already divorced, so there has to be things like a divorce certificate. So what kind of documents, people ask me, what kind of documents show that you are in a relationship with someone? um, these are mainly documents that bear both of your names, not one person's names. So it can be a mortgage to where you live, it can be a lease for a business, it can be a rental agreement, for a tenancy agreement for where you pay rent. There can be having documents that are showing the same address, that show that you live in the same household. For example, your IDs or your driver's license, insurance policies, these kind of documents that show that this person and this person share the same address because they live together. There can be other things like joint bank accounts, such documents basically. Now, what you need to know is that common law partners can be with more than one person at the same time. Okay? They cannot be with more than one person, at the same time. Basically, a common law partner relationship cannot be a polygamous relationship. So it has to be one partner with another partner. It cannot be more than two people. It cannot be an incestuous relationship, so you cannot be related by blood in any way, shape or form. You cannot even be long distance cousins, and this applies to mainly the communities that it's okay for them to marry their long distance cousins. If it's a legal marriage, that could work, but if it's a common law partner relationship, that one would be considered as incest and it is not allowed. Obviously, one party or nobody should be under the age of 18 years, which is the legal age for most countries. Again, and obviously your common law partner or your de facto partner cannot be incarcerated. They cannot be in prison for whatever reason. So if they're in prison, then they don't qualify to be your common law partner. Because there's no evidence of cohabitation and maybe conjugal rights in some cases. There's no evidence of cohabitation because this person is in prison. But if you had been legally married, then of course this person is still your spouse, even if they are in prison. And anyway, how would they even be sponsoring if they're in prison? And the other thing is that they cannot be sharing the same ancestor. This is what I talked about cousins. And even adopted children are considered as relationship by, it's called consanguinity. It's a relationship by ancestral heritage. Even if someone is adopted, they're still considered as family ancestry. So such people cannot be common law partners or de facto partners. So that's it for today. I just wanted to highlight those three differences because personally, as a visa agent, these are words that have in the past been I wasn't very sure whether to term one party as a de facto partner or a common law partner or a spouse. And I think this also applies to many more people who will be applying for their visas. They will need to know how to really categorize their partners or their sponsors. This mainly happens when they ask you whether you're married, the kind of relationship you are. They ask you if you're single, married, de facto partner, common law partner, widowed, those kind of questions. And also when you're trying to sponsor a person for their visa application. So that's it for today. But I'm planning to make a sequence of videos on student visa applications. Student visa applications that have been rejected before, and writing a statement of purpose as part of your student visa application. So that's it for today. This was a really short video. As always, keep liking, keep sharing this kind of content and subscribing. I will see you on the next one. You know where our office is, and our number is on I think it's somewhere on the description of our channel, and if it's not, then you can find it on Google as Millennia Visa Specialists Kenya. So thank you so much guys, and bye. See you next time.